Hi guys, today I'm going to be talking about my products and my techniques that I use to make my planters. So these are my two most recent ones that I have made, but for today's video I'm going to be showing how I did this one right here. I encourage you guys to be creative with it and come up with your own color schemes and your own designs, but if you want to know the techniques and the products that I use, that's what this video is going to be about. Okay, so for this project you're going to need a terracotta planter, some acrylic paints, a craft knife, some polymer clay, an extruder, which is optional, Sculpey clay adhesive, a waterproof gloss spray, and some acetone. Okay, so firstly, I just want to talk about how to choose your colors. So obviously you want to pick two colors that blend together really nicely, or if you want, you can just choose one color fading to like a lighter version of that color, or fading to black or white, or however you want to do it. But if you want to choose two different colors, I just want to help you decide what colors to choose. So basically when you're choosing, you want to look at the color wheel and you want to choose two colors that are really close to each other on the color wheel. So for example, if you want to go yellow to orange, those are going to blend together really well. For me, I've chosen green to purple, so obviously those are not near each other on the color wheel. So what I've done, if you can see here, is I've passed through blue. So I've gone green to blue to purple here. So you can do it that way. What you don't want to do is you don't want to go from green straight to purple, because if you're passing through the center of the color wheel, as you blend those colors together, it's not going to look very nice. You're going to get like a brown or like a dirty sort of, it's just not a nice color that you want. So if you want two colors that are kind of like on the opposite side, pass through a third color like what I've done, and then it will come out a lot nicer. But if you don't want to worry about all of that and you just want to do one color, that can be fine too, maybe just a little bit easier as well. So for example, on this one here, I've just done purple, so it's basically just purple fading to black. Or you could do one color fading to white, which I've done before as well, and that also looks quite nice. So the clay I'll be using for this project is Sculpey Primo, which is a polymer clay. Polymer clay requires you to bake it in order to set it. These are the three main colors I'll be using, which I mixed up using a few different colors. So this is the device that I use to get all of the clay cylinders the exact size. It's called an extruder, and I use this Fimo brand one, but there's other cheaper ones that you can get. So basically you just unwind it, you put the clay in there, and I didn't unwind it enough, but you get the idea. And then you've got all of these different size things you can choose from for like what size clay you want. I use this one for the planters, so put that in there, puts the lid on, and then you just wind it through. And that is how I get my little strips all the same size. So this is my base. This is what I start with. It's just a little terracotta planter. As you can see, I've just marked little dots on where the center of the planter is, because I want to put the blue in the center and work up and down from there. And this is what I use to adhere the clay to the planter. It's Sculpey oven bake adhesive. It used to be called Sculpey Bake and Bond. So basically this will just adhere clay to like a variety of different surfaces. However, you have to bake it to get it to stick. All right, so I'm just going to start off with a rough drawing of the pattern that I want to put the clay in. It does not need to be perfect, it's just a rough guide. And then I'm going to coat that area with the Sculpey glue. It's quite tricky to get this very first piece of clay on because it slips around when you're trying to stick it on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this on and then I'm going to bake it straight away so that it holds its place. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place the whole planter in the oven like this. When it comes to polymer clay, you can bake it as many times as you like, which is one of the reasons why I love it, because you can bake it to set your work before adding more parts, so there's no risk of ruining the rest of it. So to get that nice, smooth, clean ombre, basically I need to blend a brand new color for every single little clay cylinder that I do. I'm starting off by working from blue to green. So I've just taken a little bit of the blue and just added a tiny little bit of the green in. Because I've made a few of these before, I know that I need roughly 10 little cylinders of clay to reach the middle of the planter down to the base of the planter. So that's how quickly I want to transition from blue to green. Blending the colors is actually the most time-consuming part of the entire process. As you can see, I do it using an electric pasta machine. However, you don't need to use an electric pasta machine. You can just blend the colors by mashing the clay together in your hands, or you could use a manual pasta machine or even a rolling pin. However, doing it like that will just take a little longer. So I've just continued that process until I have my 10 little strips of clay going from blue to green. And now I'm ready to start sticking them on. As I said before, I've already baked it at this point. So that piece of blue clay in the middle is not going anywhere, and I can just use it sort of as a guide for where the next piece of clay is going to go. As I continue to go and the planter starts to fill up, I will continue to bake it as well, just because I don't want to be holding on to unbaked pieces of clay and put fingerprints all over it or squish the clay. As I start to get close to the bottom, I'll stop and I'll paint the bottom. The reason why I'll do this is because I want to put the paint down before I put the clay down. If I try and paint it after I've put the clay down, it's quite hard to paint close enough so that you can't see the terracotta underneath. I also don't want any black paint getting onto the clay when I'm using light colored clay. I will need to go in with another coat of paint when I'm finished, but this is just to get that little bit around the edges. Now, once I've done the clay right down the bottom, if I've got a wavy pattern like this, I want it to sit completely flat, so I'll need to just cut a little slice off the bottom of the clay to make sure that it's sitting flat when I put it down. Now I'm just finishing off the little bottom gaps before I move on to the top of the planter. Here I'm just mixing my clay colors once again, exactly as I did before, but I'm now going from blue to purple. Starting out with a blue piece of clay just like before, and each time adding a little bit of purple until I get my 10 strips. And there we have our nice blue to purple blend ready to stick on the pot. Now just continue the process just as before until it gets right to the very top of the planter. As I said before, don't be afraid to bake this as many times as you want. So if you're running out of places to hold it because you're squishing the clay that you've put down, just pop it in the oven and bake it, and then you can continue working on it again later. As I've worked my way up, I realized that I didn't have enough strips of clay. So off camera, I've just blended a couple more pieces of purple, each time going a little bit darker. Now, as you start getting towards the top, it's going to get a little bit more tricky because you have to curl it around the top of the planter. I just curve it around the top a little bit and then I just cut it off to make a straight line. And then you're almost finished. You just pop the whole thing in the oven and bake it so that it's ready for the next step. Once the whole thing's baked and set, you're going to need some acetone to clean it up. Alright, so as you can see, as we get close up, there's lots of little pieces of dust and dirt that stick onto the clay. So basically you just want to use the acetone on a little cotton tip to tidy that up and get the dust off. When you're doing this, just be careful not to rub the same spot for too long or apply too much acetone, because the acetone takes off a little thin layer of the clay. And if you rub it on one spot, then you're obviously going to get a dent in the clay. Then next up, I'm just going in with the black paint on the inside of the planter and the base of the planter. You can paint it any color you like, and depending on what paint you're using, you may need to do 2 or more coats to make sure that it's really opaque. And finally, I will be sealing it with this waterproof gloss spray. The reason I seal it is because I want that gloss appearance, but also it's to protect the paints from chipping off. So if you decided that you don't want to actually put any paint on the planter, you could just skip this step and leave it unsealed for a more matte finish. However, if you do put paint on the planter, I would recommend sealing it. Otherwise, the paint will chip away. And there's the final results. I hope this helped, and if you do make your own, please share it with me on TikTok or Instagram, which is linked below, because I would love to see them. And feel free to make suggestions for other videos I could do, or if you have any questions, ask me in the comments and I'll answer them. Thank you so much. Bye.